I want to welcome all of you here in the room and welcome all of those watching from afar to tonight's Innovate State conversation featuring alumnus Josh Cooper. Really excited about Josh being back on campus. We'll get to him here in a moment. But before we get to tonight's featured guest, I want to give you a few commercials for upcoming programs or events or opportunities that might really matter to those of you watching virtually or here in person. We have many students here this evening. So we've got a few things coming up with Burgess Institute, including the two-day venture. Anyone here in the room been to a two-day venture event before? Excellent. Great to see some of you have been prior participants. Two-day venture is one of our most dynamic programs that's offered to students 4 times a year, twice in the fall, twice in the spring. We have our last two-day venture weekend happening March 22nd and 23rd. It's a 36-hour immersion experience where students come together, form teams, and you work on solving a problem or coming up with an idea that you could pitch to take to the marketplace. You pitch that idea in front of a panel of judges. The winning team gets a $500 grant, and it's just a super fun experience. We oftentimes find some of our most promising student venture ideas can find the genesis at a two-day venture. So highly recommend it. Super cool, super fun. Meet new friends, meet new people. March 22nd, 23rd. You can register by going to eship.msu.edu right now. The other program, or really week, that I should talk to you about is Entrepreneurship and Innovation Week here at MSU. It's led and hosted by the Burgess Institute, and it's taking place April 1st through April 5th. We're going to have programming and events literally just about every day that week, including Innovate State happening on April 3rd. And of course, the Burgess New Venture Challenge on Thursday, April 4th. Anyone here in the room been to Burgess New Venture Challenge before? MSU's, yep, I know Josh has, as a previous awardee. So that is MSU's premier student pitch competition. If you are familiar with Shark Tank, it's kind of like our version of that. And so we have 15 student semifinalist teams right now competing, and they're going to be arriving on April 4th to pitch privately to a panel of esteemed judges. And then later that evening, as part of the public part of the program, you're going to get to hear some of the top student teams share their venture or their idea to a room of 300 plus people here at the Kellogg Center on MSU's campus. So again, that's Thursday, April 4th, free event, but you got to register. You got to claim your free ticket in order to be able to go to that event. Highly encourage it. If you're a younger student and you're just kind of new to this stuff, it's a great window into our world, and it's a great forum for you to get excited, inspired about your fellow peers that are working on really exciting ideas as founders or entrepreneurs in our program. So I want to mention both of those opportunities to you today. Last but not least, I just want to again welcome our guest this evening. Josh is back on campus from Denver, Colorado. This is a part of our Emerging Leader series of Innovate State. It's a chance for us to kind of give a platform to some of our more recent grads. So Josh is a younger, quote unquote, alumnus, if you will. But certainly you wouldn't know it by his maturity. He demonstrated that even as a student in our program, so it's really excited to have him back on campus to share his story, because not long ago, just in fact 3 years ago, he was in your shoes as a student working on a venture, and now has scaled it to a company that's raised 7 figures in capital and has 25 plus employees working for him all across the United States of America. True success story of our program. So we're really excited about this platform to be able to welcome recent grads like Josh back, because I think you're going to find his story really relatable, and he's going to have some profound advice and insight to share with you this evening. So without further ado, if you can join me in welcoming Josh and my colleague Claire Hampel to the stage, who are going to be sharing tonight's conversation with all of you. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming today. Just real quick to get the energy up in the room, I was wondering if everyone could do go green.
Go right.
One more time. Go green.
Go right.
All right, perfect. So, welcome, Josh.
Thank you. This is crazy. When I was here, we would have like 17 people here. Seriously, like this is awesome. Like all day has just been people like really doing it and really building, and it's just cool to see.
Yeah, and you had a lunch and learn earlier as well.
Yeah,
right?
we met with like maybe 15 students, and they're building, man. Like these aren't ideas; they're live, they're launched, they're getting customers. It's really cool to see.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Josh, for being here today. was wondering if real quickly you could go over just who you are, your business, tell everyone a little bit about yourself who may not already know who you are.
For sure. My name is Josh Cooper. I run a company called Skoop Signage. I started the business freshman year. I was a freshman here in 2017. The business started quite differently than where it is today. The initial goal of our first company was to help students move around campus for free. It was a transportation system. And so keep in mind, like 2017, there was no Bird and Lime scooter. The CATA buses on campus were not free at the time. And Uber and Lyft were kind of in their peak surge phase. So that definitely wasn't an affordable solution as a broke college kid. But the idea was we took what's called a pedicab, a three-wheeled bike taxi, and we put digital screens on the backs of those and sold ad space to local businesses, up and down Grand River and to the apartment complexes. And at one point, the university bought some ad space. And we were able to use the revenue that we were generating from advertising sales on that back screen in order to offset the cost of transportation for students here on campus. We were moving several thousands of people for free every month. And it was fun. It was a really cool business that started to scale. By my sophomore year, we opened up a second fleet of these bike taxis in Royal Oak, Michigan, just outside of Detroit. And then shortly after that, going into my sophomore year, second semester sophomore year, we opened a third fleet in New Jersey, Asbury Park, New Jersey, on the boardwalk of the Jersey Shore. And so, from freshman to end of sophomore year, we went from having 2 little prototype bike taxis to almost a dozen of them and throughout these 3 cities. And that's when stuff got a little challenging. Once we scaled, we didn't have a way to remotely control those screens. So we said to ourselves, we really need a way to build a software that could remotely control these screens and upload ads or images to these screens, because they're in another state and we can't go there physically every day to pop in a flash drive and download a new loop of ads to it. So we got to building, and then COVID hit, and everybody went indoors, and not many people needed a pedicab around town. So that's when we took our software that we had just built and we brought it indoors, and restaurants and retail stores started using it to remotely control what was playing on their screens, like their daily menus, important messages about new products they have in stock. Fast forward today, we power a few thousand screens in retail stores, malls, airports, movie theaters, you name it, all over North America.
Awesome. So you just mentioned a lot that you have done. Did that all happen in your 4 years of college, or how was that spaced out?
Pretty much. I mean, let's think. We launched the bike taxi business freshman year. That started scaling. By sophomore year, we were in about 3 cities. And then COVID hit my junior year, the second semester of my junior year, right as we were getting ready to launch and roll out the software. And then we still simultaneously ran the bike taxi pedicab business for about a year. And then I'd say by 2021, we were 100% all in on software and starting to sell it to businesses nationwide. Right around the time I was starting to leave school.
Awesome, cool. And then sorry Lori to put you out on blast here, but I was talking to Lori like a month before I knew that I was interviewing you, and she told me that I should ask you about the story of your first customer. And if you wanted to, sorry Lori, I caught her mid-bite.
That is the second time today.
Yeah, when we took a trip to New York.
Oh.
What are your first customers?
Wow, I was going to tell, I have a different one in mind.
Okay.
Well, so this, yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I'll tell that. But so I'm a big believer in like going from 0 to 1. Like the first stage of a company or a startup is you have to launch. You have to do whatever you need to do to get the product or the service out there and start trying to get customers. And what happened was the summer of 2018, I was living on campus here in East Lansing. I stayed up here that summer, and we were trying really hard to find a way to put LCD screens on the back of a pedicab. And that ended up being a pretty hard thing to do. Because when we would drive the cabs around, the screens would, shake, and, if you hit a pothole, it would shatter. And so we really had to figure out how to do it right and how to put a battery under there. And so while we're doing all that, I was like, we need to line up some customers. And there was a restaurant on Grand River called Pita. I think they're gone now. Are they? Yeah. They were great.
There's Pita Way.
Yeah, I saw that when I was driving in today. But so there was Pita Pit right next to Lou and Harry's. We went into, me and my buddy Jonah, who was helping me out at the time, we went into Pita Pit, and we said to them, in the fall, there's going to be these bike taxis riding around campus with these digital screens on them. And if you want to get ad space in time for the football season, now's the time to get in.
Nice.
And we ended up negotiating what turned out to be a $1,300 3-month ad space sale. And they were going to advertise from September through football season. We made the sale, we shook hands, and the owner at the time said, "Do you mind sending me the contract later tonight?" And I said, 100%. And we walked out of Pita Pit, and Jonah was freaking out, and he was like, "That was awesome." And I was like, "Dude, we got to go write a contract tonight. We have nothing to send this guy." And that's 0 to 1. Like, that's building the plane as you're flying it. But I think if there's anyone out there who's thinking about launching or wants to build a company, you have to get live, and you have to start getting customers. And that, to me, is customer number one. Yeah, we didn't even have a way to build them. Seriously, there was no way for us to accept credit cards online, and we could have spun something up, but I'm pretty sure they just wrote us a check and just drove over to the bank and deposited it.
So did you get the contract done?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. No, they were a great customer, and
That's
they
entrepreneurial spirit.
yeah, and we loved them, and the best part was we would actually really drive a lot of customers to their store. People would get in the cabs and be like, "Hey, any good place to grab food here?" And we're like, "Pita Pit." And we did that with several businesses all over East Lansing.
Awesome. Cool. So you mentioned this idea of going from 0 to 1, and a lot of students in this room are trying to start a business from just an idea or already have a business and are trying to scale it. What does it mean to you to go from 0 to 1 and potentially 1 to 2?
0 to 1 is you're not a company if you don't sell something and have people to buy that thing. And that's what you have to race towards. To me, going from 0 to 1 is going from idea on a piece of paper to we have a product. Doesn't have to be great, doesn't have to be polished, but you have to have something that you can ship, sell, download, and receive compensation for the exchange of that thing. And I mean, there's a lot in there within 0 to 1, but if I had to put a label on it, it would be do whatever you have to do to get customers. That's the mission of 0 to 1. And then we can break down within 0 to 1, are you pre-launch, are you pre-revenue, do you have your first pool of customers, are you cash flow positive? There's different stages within that. but that's what you have to do, is build something, get it in the hands of customers, because you don't know if this company's going to exist. You don't know if customers are going to want the thing you're going to make, which, by the way, is like, that's the number one reason why startups fail. I think a lot of people are always say, like, competition kills startups, or run out of money, or so many different reasons. But the number one reasons why startups don't ultimately work out is because they fail to build something that people want and are willing to pay money for. And so the quicker you can ship this thing that you're building and get it into the hands of a customer, and that customer is able to give you payment for that thing, that to me is what you have to allocate 100% of your energy towards when you're starting up. It's by far the number one reason why startups fail. They fail to build something that people want.
Cool. So for entrepreneurs in the room, how can they figure out whether they're in between that 0 to 1 phase or the 1 to 2?
Well, 1 to 2 is, you'll know, because you have several customers now, several employees now, you're scaling, the product is built, there's reliable revenue coming in month over month, and the types of challenges you're solving at 1 to 2 are very different than the ones you're solving from 0 to 1. At 0 to 1, something might not actually exist yet. At 1 to 2, the thing exists, and for example, customers may reach out because things are breaking. There's a bug in the software, and there's issues, and we're very much in 1 to 2 right now. To give you an example of something that we're working on at 1 to 2, as you have hundreds of customers, the likelihood that there's going to be a bug in the app or a question, whether it's tier 1 or tier 2 support, tier 1 being like, how do I reset my password? Or how do I add a new user to my account? Or there's actually a bug, something with my screen isn't working properly, I need to reach out to technical support. You can do things that don't scale to a degree, but at some point when you start doing things that don't scale, meaning like a customer would just reach out to me, and then I would go internally and call our head of engineering or our CTO or one of the developers who built that feature and say, this thing isn't working, it's broken, we need to fix this. And when that gets to a volume where I'm spending all my time just coordinating this. Customer reaches out to me, I'm having to find somebody on the development team who can fix it. Now it's like, we need a support system. You have to be able to go and email support and fill out a support ticket or message our chatbot. And then you need to build an internal system where you can keep track of all of the tickets coming in. So when you get to a point where, all right, me just texting with a customer and reaching out internally using like Slack or something to get an engineer on it, when that starts becoming unscalable to the point where it diminishes the customer's experience, that's 1 to 2. And you have to build systems around it. The way I say it is 0 to 1 is do whatever you need to do to get customers, plain and simple. 1 to 2, find all of the things that suck about the company and work manically to make them unsuck. So it's a subpar experience if a customer has to text me and they can't track the ticket, they don't know how long before the ticket's going to get resolved. That's a subpar experience for our customers, which no one wants. And so to me, that's something that sucks, and we need to devote resources to making it unsuck. So 0 to 1, it is get customers. 1 to 2, find the things that suck about the company and work really hard to make them unsuck.
I love that. I love that. Very literate.
You got to boil these things down. And a lot of people are very like technical with their terms of where your startup is at. It's like, are you pre-launch? Are you pre-revenue? Do you have product market fit? Are you cash flow positive? It's like, the mission's to get customers. And then the mission is to make the things that are broken system-wise unbroken and make it a really enjoyable experience and a very scalable experience. So I try and get extremely literal, like just boil it down. No terms, no definitions, no acronyms.
I like it. Thank you, no acronyms.
Yeah.
Those are a lot. So for some of you guys who don't know, I had a meeting with Josh before this, and we kind of discussed some things and points that he wanted to make to you guys here today. And one of the things we discussed were some fundamental startup laws, and I have them written down here, and I was wondering if I could read them to you, and then you make some comments on them. I can do them one at a time, or I can give you all of them.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So one you talked on a little bit, but you said the main reason startups fail is they don't build something people want. Startups must create something people need enough to pay for.
Yeah, I really super believe that. I think creating a startup is easier today than it ever has been. Like I know several people who run software companies who tell me horror stories about like physically going to a data center, physically going up to their servers, finding shelf space, plugging in the server, getting power to it, potentially putting cameras in there, some kind of alarm system to monitor them. And if you ever had an outage or need to power cycle the server, it could be 2 a.m, some alarm goes off or you have an app outage. Now you have to drive over to your data center, get access to the data center, go to your server. That's a pain. Today, with something like cloud hosting on AWS or whatever service provider you're using, all of that can be done remotely. And any person in any college dorm room can now host a website or a product or an app that has millions of customers. And so the barriers to entry have come down a lot. So when that happens, you can sometimes get this inverse effect where you have people who just say, that sounds like a cool idea, I'm gonna go and build it. And in reality, yeah, it's a cool idea and it might be fun to you, but is there a market for it? Are there customers out there who want it? It's one thing to want it and use it. It's another thing to get customers to say, I want this thing or need this thing so bad that I'm ready and willing to sign a contract and commit to paying for it month over month over month. And that's why startups fail, plain and simple, is cool idea does not equal viable business. And the only way you have a viable business is if you build something that people really want to the degree where they're willing to pay for it and use it.
Awesome. That honestly bleeds really well into number 2, which you said, if someone's already doing it well, work on something else. The goal is to build a monopoly by solving a real problem.
Yeah, this one, I really fundamentally believe that companies should exist to solve a problem. Otherwise, what are you doing? And so I guess this goes back to when I was younger, late in middle school and early into high school, I was somewhat interested in politics. I'm just an involved person and thought that maybe going the public policy route would be a good way to just enact change and kind of have a voice and say in things. And then as I got older, I realized those guys aren't always super effective at their jobs and move really, really slowly. But companies can move really, really fast and actually change something. And so I super deeply believe that businesses should be solving a problem and trying to make the world better through the creation of some product or service. And so that's why I say, if someone's doing a really great job of something and there's a real problem that you pinpointed and this piece of technology or this app or device solves that problem, let them fly. Go work on something else that's another problem that the world needs a solution to.
So did you ever feel that fear that someone was just going to jump on the market and be faster, quicker, smarter than Skoop?
Yeah. Well, keep in mind, I mean, we started at a time where there was a lot of competition, but when you have an incumbent in the when you have a legacy provider, and so one legacy provider's gaps is another startup's opportunity. So if a legacy incumbent is not doing something great, like, for example, their product is extremely expensive and out of reach for a lot of companies, or their support is terrible, and anytime you need help, it takes 6 weeks to get an answer, all of those gaps of the existing players equals opportunity for new startup to do that thing that they do better. Whatever sucks about their company, if your startup can make that unsuck, then that's an opportunity. And that's what we saw. When we were trying to remotely control our screens, at the time, cloud-based digital signage software was just coming to fruition. Most of it was on-premise technology. We knew, and I still know today, billboard companies that have what's called a billboard runner. And they physically drive to the base of the billboard. They take a key, unlock the control box. There's a little computer in there, and they swap the flash drive out and say, okay, here's March's ad loop. And they drive around at the beginning of the month and swap those out. And then we started looking at the technologies to remotely control billboards from a cloud-based system. And at the time, they were like somewhere in the ballpark of about $8,000 a license per year. And it was just super out of reach for us. I mean, we wanted to put our pedicabs all over the country. There was no way we could afford $8,000 per screen per year. We would have been spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on this software, and the business wasn't generating enough ad revenue to support it. So those gaps there showed us that there was opportunity. So I think, yeah, we just kind of found the things that the existing providers didn't do well, and just made it our absolute mission to do those things better than they do.
Awesome, I love that. So just because someone's already doing it, they might not be doing it in the most efficient, effective way.
Yeah.
You can slide in there.
Perhaps I need to clarify. If someone's doing it well, then go work on something else. But if someone's not doing it well, then that's opportunity to go and do it better.
Awesome. Okay, so then 4 and 5, they're a little ambiguous. So there's try and kill it. And then 4 is no silver bullets, only lead bullets.
Yeah.
So can you expand on both those?
Try and kill it means there's something really dangerous that happens. Some people call it like the itch or like the internal fire. And I have it all the time. I think of a new startup idea every few days. And I don't act on any of them because I go to Google, look it up, and I'm like, oh, someone's doing it. And so I try and kill it. I try and find all the reasons, why wouldn't this work? Is there a big enough market for this? Would it be too expensive to build this thing? Is this a moonshot idea? Are there, do the laws of physics not allow for this thing to exist? And if you can go through your own kind of checklist of being like, wait a second, no one's doing this. There's a huge market here. There's no barriers to entry. It's affordable to start. This is a viable idea. Why can't this exist? Then you have to go and see if it does exist. And then if you conclude there's no reason why this thing couldn't exist, shouldn't exist, and no one is doing it, then and only then do I think you should proceed with the idea. But you should kind of like, govern yourself a little bit. There's nothing worse than like launching a company and then finding those things out later. And that I think is what I've learned the difference between a first-time founder and a second-time founder is. A first-time founder opens the floodgates and they're launching. A second-time founder takes a lot of time and several months and goes around to potential customers and asks them, hey, if I build this thing that does X, Y, and Z, would you be interested in buying this thing? And only until they get 1 or 2 or 300 potential customers saying, yeah, if you build that, we're in, we'll sign up the first day it's ready, then that's your ticket to go live with it. So that's what I mean by try and kill it. Try and find all the reasons why this thing couldn't work. And if you can't, then you have the green light.
I love that, because honestly, reading this without context, I thought it was like, try it and like kill it. Like, you go kill it, girl. But
No.
it's not, it's like, kill it.
No.
Okay.
The complete opposite. Don't even devote any energy or resources to it. Don't actually start building it until you've validated those things. A lot of people make this. This is why most startups fail within the first year, is because they launch, they try, the competition's crazy, the market's not that big, somebody else is doing it really well, and then it's like, well, what are we doing? Let's go devote our energy elsewhere. You don't want to do that. You don't want to waste half a year to a year of your life working on something that you're just going to kill.
Okay, perfect. And then the next one was no silver bullets, only lead bullets.
Yeah, there's a pro and a con to this one. And the pro is, in business, there's sometimes not always an answer. Like, you might really be faced with a situation sometimes that you can't Google, or no one's ever done this thing before. You can't call your advisors, you can't call your investors and strategize it, because it's truly hasn't been done. And that is a tough spot to be in, but you'll figure it out. The nice part about this one is there is an answer. You're just not going to like the answer. And this one is, there's only lead bullets in business. And this is by, I got this from Ben Horowitz, from Andreessen Horowitz, in his book. Andreessen Horowitz is a big venture fund in the Bay Area. And Ben Horowitz says that there's no silver bullets. You have to do all of the above. And I talk to startups all the time. I'm mentoring one right now for the Burgess New Venture Challenge. And
Shout out.
Yeah.
$50,000 in scholarship prizes.
That's right. I talk to startups all the time, and they're like, we have this piece of technology, and we want to sell it to hospitals. But we're trying to figure out what's the best way to get in touch with the hospital. And here's what I always say. I know what you want me to say. I know you want me to say, there is the perfect website, callhospitals.com, look up your hospital, and all the contact information for every decision maker is going to be right there. It doesn't exist. And the answer is, you know what you have to do. You have to do all the above. And this is what a lead bullet is. It's heavy, it hurts, it's a lot of work, it's hard. But this is the hard thing about hard things. And in startups, there's only lead bullets, which means there's never this one thing that you have to do. And if you just do that one thing, it's game over. You're absolutely 10xing. If you want to get in touch with a hospital, call the front desk. Go on LinkedIn. Find everybody who you can possibly find who works at that hospital. Cold outreach every single one of them. Call every single one of them. Physically go to that hospital. Find every decision maker. That's the lead. That's the brunt of the work. And so the nice part is there's an answer. The unfortunate part is it's a lot of work, and you're not going to like that answer. That's what I mean by lead bullets. There's no shortcuts, ever.
Well explained. Thank you. And then lastly, it was know what you need at each stage, which I believe kind of feeds into how entrepreneurs should know where they should be spending their time.
This one, it falls on the founder. This one falls on the entrepreneur, but it's not always the problem of the founder. This one, I blame investors.
Okay.
You get a lot of investors who want to be investors. And it's cool. To advise a startup, to invest in a startup that could hit big is a pretty awesome thing. And the challenge is, if you've never gone from 0 to 1 before, and 1 to 2 before, it's all a guess. And you may know how to scale a business. For example, I have an executive coach. He's an investor, and whenever we talk, he says, I am not a 0 to 1 guy. you do not plug me in at idea stage. I am a 2 to 10 guy. I'm a 10 to 100. This company that's doing 10 million, you plug me in, I'll take that to 100 million. And the challenge is a lot of the people who have the type of capital to deploy had a very long, successful career and have collected that money over time and are now at a position later in their career where they can start to make some angel or seed investments into companies. And the challenge there is they're extracting lessons from what they did from going from 10 to 100 when they're trying to apply it to a business that's going from 0 to 1. And so however you settled some debate between your 30-person marketing company, your marketing department that couldn't get along, we don't have a marketing department. There isn't, I am the marketing department. So the lessons that you're extracting there are not always applicable. And maybe I'm not explaining this too well, but in my experience, I used to get a lot of investors who would say, some random idea, you don't invest enough in social media. Okay, why do you think that? We've done a lot of social media tests, and we've found that cold calling has a 10x higher result and likelihood of turning into a customer than Facebook ads. So just because you follow a bunch of startups or you're on social media doesn't mean that our company needs to be investing in social media right now. Maybe one day we'll get there, but right now we need to be cold calling. And I asked if it was okay if I share this example. The startup I'm mentoring for the Burgess Challenge built a algorithm in a tool that monitors hate speech on their platform. Great, love it, we need that. The challenge is it's not live yet and there's 0 posts on the platform. So we just devoted several weeks of time building something for a problem that we don't have yet. That's what I mean by know what you need at the right stage. When hate speech on the platform becomes a real problem, we need to solve that quickly and devote a lot of resources to it. But it's not a challenge right now. It's not something that you're currently being faced with, and that's what I mean by know what you need at each stage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the examples definitely helped. When you were talking about the investor who gave you the advice and you were like, no, I know myself, I know that we'd just be throwing money at a problem we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And then in our prep call, we spoke about the 5 stages of a startup. Pre-launch, post-launch, product market fit, building a company around the product, scale, and then exit. Can you describe the mission of each of these stages and some tips from your personal experience how to succeed?
Yeah, so let's start with the first one.
Yeah.
Pre-launch.
Yes.
Okay, so pre-launch. So the nice part about this one is there's also a clear ticket to enter the next category. So if you're pre-launch, the mission is to launch. And then when you've launched, you're no longer pre-launch, if that makes sense. So whatever the next stage is the thing that you're working on in the current stage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you're pre-launch, the mission is you have to launch. That's it. The only mission is build the most minimum viable product and get to a point where you can start shipping that and getting it into the hands of customers. So that's the mission at pre-launch, is you have to launch. And then you're post-launch. And then number 2 was?
Number 2 was post-launch, and then number 3 was product market fit.
Product market fit. So product market fit is kind of when you start to figure out, do people really want the thing that I'm making? And it's not enough to get a list of people that say, yeah, I want the thing you're making. That's where you have to have the data to back it up. And that's where you have to be able to say, we have 100, 200, 300 customers. They're using the thing, stuff's starting to break, and we found our niche. We sold to a lot of industries. We found that this industry didn't quite want the thing we made. That industry wasn't super interested in it. But man, this weird little niche industry is just loving it and eating it up. And that's when you're starting to get product market fit. What you've found is the product that you've built fits really well into the market you're selling it to. And there's a lot of definitions online of what qualifies as product market fit or what criteria you have to fit to be at product market fit, but that's the most challenging stage of startup. Most startups never achieve product market fit because, again, the number one reason why they fail is they fail to build something that people want. So with product market fit, you have identified the market that you're going to sell to, you've created the product that they want, and that's when you start to see a little bit of scale. And that's where you start to see week over week over week over growth and month over month growth. And that's the most important part. And then building a company around the product. Mm-hmm. So this goes into finding things that suck and make them unsuck at the company. It's one thing to have a product. It's another thing to build a company around said product. So sure, we've built a product, but who do you call if you have a billing issue? Who do you call if you have a tech issue? Who do you call to onboard you and set up your account for you? This is where, as a founder, the answer is you. You do all of those things until you can't anymore. You have the scale and the volume of customers now where you have to start to really hire some people and build a team. And now you say, we're going to build an accounting team. And if you have a billing discrepancy or a billing question, reach out to our accounting team. And then we have an onboarding team. If you need to get your account live or buy more licenses, shoot a message to the onboarding team. If you have an issue or there's a bug or something's not working, reach out to the support team. So that's what I mean by, once you build the product, then you have to start building a company around the product, and that's people. And that's really the transition between going from a founder to a CEO. You're not a CEO if you don't manage anybody and you're a solo entrepreneur. You're a founder, and founders are awesome. I think founders change the world. CEOs build and scale companies. And that's a really important distinction to make. And it's important that you're honest with yourself about where you are with that, because it's a whole host of behavioral changes that you have to make as a founder, and it's certainly one that I'm still trying to figure out.
Awesome. And then lastly, exit after scaling, exit.
I've never done this one,
Okay.
so I can't speak to it.
You're in scaling?
Yes,
Okay.
we are very much building the company around the product. Exit is when you exit. So the worst type of exit is it fails and dissolves, and you have to go and shut down the company. No one wants to be in that position. The other forms of exits are maybe you get acquired by a bigger company. Maybe you merge with another company. There's another company that, putting these two companies together would make a super company. So you merge. And then there's going public, which is the IPO, which was a very desired exit for a lot of companies, kind of in the dot-com boom, and even in the earlier 2000s, but that is another form of exiting. So when I say exit, that's what I mean. You're passing off the baton to others who can scale this company to the next level.
Would you say that for you and for Skoop, you are thinking about that exit strategy? Have you thought about it for a while, not at all in your mind?
I think at Skoop right now, we have a lot more work to do. There's a lot more scale. We need, here's the thing. There's some big swings that we're working on right now that I think our team's pretty amped about. We don't build companies to sell them. We build them because we're trying to solve a problem for our customers, and we're pretty passionate about that. And we kind of have to spend all our energy doing that. And if an exit comes and an exit makes sense, we'll look at that. I think investors of ours always want to know what a potential exit strategy looks like and what the exit options are. So it is something that we think about, but it's not something that we're actively pursuing. I think like I said, there's some pretty awesome new technologies that we want to build. And I think some of us want to see it through. We want to see if we can go again from idea to full commercialization and see if we can really disrupt and change industries for the better.
I love that. And then since you said that you're in the scaling phase and you're doing a lot in regards to that, as a founder, how do you determine when is the right time to scale, and what considerations do you have to think of before you do scale your product?
Well, the answer is when to scale. Sorry, the question was when to scale. The answer is always. I mean, like, scale from day one. Grow. You got to have week over week growth and try and be, doubling or tripling the size of your company for several weeks or several months. And then the second part of your question is a little more complex. How do you know when to scale, when to not scale? You have to know that the company can support the new scale, if that makes sense. So it's one thing to say, we need a support team. Okay, well, can we afford to hire 3, 4, 5 support people? And if you can't, then maybe that's an indication that, okay, if you make that decision and you scale your support team, you're going to burn through all your cash and then you're not going to have a company anymore. So don't do that. And then the other things are, like, if you're going to take on a new mega customer, is your product or app built to handle that load? Do you have a lot of technical debt, or are your servers constructed in a way where they can handle an influx of 1,000 users? Or what happens when there's this peak surge of time where everybody logs onto the app? Is it going to crash? If the decision that you're making, if I can formulate it, let me think of an equation here. If scaling this thing you're trying to scale equals potentially crushing the company because it can't handle the scale, then don't do it.
Got it.
But make the preparations so that you can scale. So if you know you're going to bring on this mega whale of a customer that's going to come with, tripling your load as an app or a software, then you might want to say to yourself, team, we need to really revisit the way that we're architected and do what we need to do to handle this influx of customers. So those are the things that, it's about doing things in order again. Know what you need at each stage. It would have been so foolish of us to build an app that could handle 1 million customers 3 years ago. Why don't we get 100 customers first? And then once stuff is a little unsteady there or breaking there, then that's something that sucks. Let's make it unsuck. Then you have the green light to move on to the next stage.
Okay. So along those lines, for students in the room, is there any piece of information you wish that you had known when you were in their position?
Really know that customers want the thing you're going to make. That's the thing that I don't see startups do, because I really think it'll solve a lot of your problems. Raising capital is really hard, especially right now. We're down about 36% year over year from 22 to 2023. So it's way harder for a startup to raise capital today. The number one thing that you have to do if you're looking to raise capital is you have to diminish the risk for your investors and show that you can have tremendous scale, and this could be really big. And the number one way to diminish the risk for an investor is to go to them and say, look at all of the people that want the thing that we're trying to make. So my advice to startups, and if I were to start again, before I even incorporated the company, hired the first person, wrote a line of code, anything like that, I'd go to 200 people and ask 200 of my prospective customer, and I would make them sign a piece of paper, non-binding, that just says, hey, if I make the thing that I'm saying I'm going to make, would you buy it? Phone number, email, signature, And now you've collected a list of leads, of hot leads, people who want the thing you're going to make. And so I would just like really, really make sure that the thing you were trying to make is wanted by people. I can't stress that enough. It sounds so simple, but it's mind-blowing how many people don't do it. Before you devote energy to this thing, go make sure people want it.
Awesome. And I believe we're almost at time, so before we open it up to you guys for Q&A, we always like to know what our entrepreneurs are listening to, absorbing, spending their extra time on. So do you have any content recommendations for everyone in the room, general or business entrepreneurship related?
Yeah. You know what's funny? I bought a Kindle maybe like 2 years ago, and they gave me 6 months free of Audible. So then I just started using Audible, and it was great. I listen to books all the time on my drives, during workouts, and I've like never used the Kindle. And so I love Audible. I listen to a ton of books.
You can say read.
Thanks. People always correct me, like, are you reading it? Are you listening to it? Read 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Try and figure out the in and outs of going from 0 to 1. Another book I like is The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's just nice to hear stories of other entrepreneurs who made it but went through the same hard challenges that you're going through right now. Makes you feel a little less alone. And then YouTube University. I probably shouldn't say this here because I'm on campus. I got more of a degree from YouTube than I did here. But I loved it. I learned a lot here. Love what Michigan State's doing. But seriously, like YouTube is a hidden gem. There's a really great series by Y Combinator called How to Start a Startup. And it's a lecture series. It follows an entire semester where Sam Altman, who's now runs OpenAI, when he was running Y Combinator, would bring in these really impressive, really incredible CEOs who would come and talk. And that like 20-some lecture series really changed the way that I look at startups and how I think about building our current company. So definitely take a look at that. And then you said just for fun ones?
Anything, yeah.
I read a book that blew my mind called The High Frontier: Human Colonies in Space. And the author of the book makes a really compelling case for when you have an exponentially growing species, like the human race, we multiply in our growth. We don't grow linearly. His claim is that a planet or a celestial body is not the most optimal place for that type of species to live. And so he has this crazy book about how we would build Manhattan-sized orbiting space colonies, space stations, have artificial gravity, they're self-sustaining, we can control the climate. And that's just one of those books that like totally introduces a new idea that you might have never thought of before, and
Cool.
that's a cool one.
So if that sounds up your alley. Okay, perfect. So I think this is about time where we can open it up to you guys if you have any questions. But thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, this is awesome.
So if anyone has any questions for Josh.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for taking the time to be a speaker in Innovate series. From 0 to 100, where do you think Skoop is, and what do you plan on addressing any adjacent markets or pivoting from here? Do you have? Could you shed some light on that? Thank you.
So 0 to 100, where is Skoop? 1 to 2, man. We got a lot of stages to go. We're at a point now where we found our groove. We've got a great team, about 25 people. We have happy customers. They're returning to the platform every month and expanding their usage. And the answer is 100% yes. I mean, we're tech nerds. Like, we're always looking for new and emerging technologies and trying to find ways to incorporate it into our app. Furthermore, it's very rare that we take bets on what we're going to build at this stage. It's not like we sit around and are like, what new features should we build? We do that, but it's way more, hey, I just talked to a customer and they could really benefit from having this feature because they currently have this problem and can't do this in our app. Great. So now we know what to build. So, and you have to be a little bit careful there of like, is this a one-off snowflake that only this customer is ever going to want and no one else wants? Or is this a feature that 60, 70, 80+% of our user base could use? And there are some pretty large things right now with AI digital humanoids and creating like a true digital team member that can live on a kiosk to help solve some of the labor shortage that our restaurants and retail stores are currently being faced with. And so that's certainly a big bet. That's a big swing. And I can say we are currently spending a lot of resources building something like that.
Awesome. Anyone else?
So you talked about making things unsuck a lot in this presentation. What was probably your hardest thing that you had to make unsuck, or maybe it came unexpected, or what was explain what that was like.
You want the actual hardest thing or a thing?
Actual.
Yeah. That's the juicy stuff.
Exactly.
I'll tell you an example of one thing that recently happened. We spent about 2 years creating our own little device called the Skoop stick. And it's a pretty powerful little device. Currently, if you want to download our app, the digital signage app, there's thousands of devices that you could download it on. You could download it from the Google Play Store, the Apple iOS store on an Apple TV device, the Amazon Fire Store, and download it onto a Fire Stick. The problem is those devices are consumer devices. So an Apple TV is really designed to be on for 6 to 8 hours a day. Watch a few Netflix things, maybe some YouTube, some HBO, whatever, but turn it off after about 6 hours. The challenge is when you put an Apple TV in a mall and it's on for 18 hours a day for several months, that device is going to burn out. And so we needed a commercial grade device that could stay on 24/7, but that was also at a really fair price point. So we developed this thing called the Skoop stick. We've sold over 1,000 of them now. And a few months ago, I was going through the user experience of unboxing a Skoop stick and setting it up. And one of the things that I noticed was right when I plugged it in, we have this beautiful Skoop signage animation that boots up right when you turn it on, and then it immediately gives you this ugly error message that says, failed to connect to server. And it's this is a magic moment. When you're in software, there are these things called magic moments. When you get your first few friends on Facebook, they send you an email, they give you a notification in the app, that's a magic moment. When you get tagged in a photo on Facebook, that's a magic moment. They're sending you an email, they're giving you the notification. And then there's a point where it's all right, you have 1,000 Facebook friends now. I don't need an email every time I get a friend. When you set up the Skoop stick and it's your first time pairing a device, it's a total magic moment. And what I realized was, I was oh man, I got an error. And then I messaged somebody in our support and they're that's right. That's just saying you need to pair the thing to Wi-Fi now. And I'm like, why aren't we saying that? Why don't we say, booyah, you're on your way, you're 2 steps away, all you got to do is choose the Wi-Fi network and put in the password. That sucked. That was a moment of like, this sucks, I am not happy as a user right now. And I kind of woke up the team in the middle of the night and was like, redesign this page, fix this immediately. We've got hundreds of these things being shipped out every month. And that was a thing that just sucked, and we had to make it unsuck. And we did. Now it's a beautiful experience end to end. And I'd say that the hardest things to make unsuck is team behavior. It's easy to fix software. It's easy to fix bugs. It's very hard to go to your sales team and change a habit that's really holding them back and fix those things. And so there's been some things that we've had to just optimize at the team level. I think those will always be your biggest challenges.
Awesome.
Thanks for sharing.
Awesome. So I know there were a few more questions, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I think that we are at 7 o'clock, but Josh will be here ready to answer some of your guys' questions afterwards. And let's give a round of applause for Josh.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good job.